Greetings and welcome. I am Joffrey, and today I come to you with a whinge most specific. The Catholic Church in EU5 has a very critical error in the way that it handles the Pope. The Pope has no power, as you've seen in the title of this video. The Pope basically does not have, well, he has a say, but he is no more important than any other cardinal in the way that they make this game function. The Pope, despite what you might assume, does not get to assign cardinals, which makes no sense at all. The Pope has no connection to how cardinals are assigned. The way that cardinals are assigned in EU5 is by building a cardinal seat. You build cardinal seats. How do you do it? You need to just have a big enough church, which, as they've stated, is cost prohibitive. But despite it being cost prohibitive, it would make zero sense, realistically, for just because Paris and two other large settlements next to it all have these really big churches that they would all get cardinals. That's not how that works. The Pope does not just decide, you have some pretty big cities and you put some big churches, so you'll get a cardinal for each of them, because the Pope doesn't want that person to have too much power, because the Pope gets to decide. But here, he has no say. What? Realistically, he should at least get to deny it if he has a negative opinion. But that isn't even relevant here. What you'd expect, at least if the Pope doesn't like you, or maybe he has a scaling opinion, as long where the more cardinals you have, the higher his opinion needs to be, or other such things. Maybe he'd have a task for you, but there is no such requirement that he will have for you. It is simply build this thing, and they're not cheap, theoretically, but I mean, they also give you bonus literacy, which is nice, and having a cardinal is really, really good, because having a cardinal, all of your cardinals, are the thing that matters for voting on papal laws. There are all these laws that the church has in EU5 where people can try and reform the Catholic Church one way or another. The Council of Trent causes this to be spurred on more, and sometimes the Catholic Church can be changed a lot, such as the Catholic Church can start persecuting witches, which, fun fact, Catholic Church didn't do that. It was the Protestants more that were doing that. The Pope did a big no-no on that. It was mostly uneducated bands of random people that would get shuffled off by nobility. But that is distracting from the point that the Pope does not have a say in this either. All of this is centered around the fact that the Pope does not have extra influence that is representative of his station. The papal bulls are also something that exists, and these can be voted on by anyone that is cardinals, which, fair enough. But again, the Pope does not have any say on it other than however many cardinals are in his realm, which, what? Why can't the Pope try to steal someone else's cardinal's influence? Just because a cardinal is in someone else's country doesn't mean that they don't, like, listen to the Pope first and foremost. It's the implication that every single cardinal that is in someone's country works for them is a little derogatory. I'm gonna be honest, and I think that EU5 is getting complicated enough that it is well within its means to move past that. I think that the Catholic Church deserves to be fleshed out as the major religion of the time in Europe. That it deserves to be fleshed out with content relating to bickering over the influence over different cardinals, and that having one in your country would give you much more influence over them, of course, but the Pope does not have enough power. Again, that's the point. Moving along to, excommunication is another thing. This is something that you would expect you would need to ask his permission for, but no, it is purely a cardinal vote, just like all of these. You have these, someone can spend the money required to start a vote. It costs money, you say, I want this to happen, you spend the money, the vote starts, and then everyone gets to say, well, yeah, people get to choose. Do they vote yes or no with their cardinals? And whichever side wins, wins. And it's the same with excommunication. There is a vote. All the people with cardinals vote. So if you have the highest number of cardinals, like if you just constantly, as France is the example, because it's where there's the big population. So if you're big France and you build up enough of these big churches, you'll just have enough cardinals that you just, no one even has a chance. You'll have a majority government. And all the votes, sorry for the sniffles, will just go your way. And excommunication, very bad, because get the excommunication CB, as in previous games. Saints, however, saints are probably the single most disrespectful thing on here. The saints are 1-to-1, like the Imperator Rome deified ruler content, just lifted out of Imperator Rome and plopped in here. Over the course of the game, you can yourself sanctify I forget if that's a real term, but you can sanctify a previous ruler of yours, or even a current one, I think, if you have the cardinals for it. And it's not something that the Pope can say no to. He does not need to sign off on this. And the explanation that Paradox uses for this is folk heroes exist. Folk heroes and saints exist, so the Pope doesn't need to sign off on whatever folk saints exist. So people can just add their saints to the list, which doesn't really make sense, because that would realistically be something then that would be tied to a specific tag. I could see that then being the case. But just because someone decides that their ruler was a particularly special dude, that now he is a saint, without the Pope saying so, there's all sorts of bureaucracy and bickering and politicking and veracity that is required before someone is deemed a saint in Catholicism. Has been and always will be that way. At the very minimum, to represent this fact, someone should be required to, in addition to having enough cardinal support, the Pope should like you. Because the cardinals aren't going to just like strong arm the Pope somehow. It's like most of the cardinals want this, so the Pope just has to say yes, because that is not how this works. He does not have to listen to them. But I believe, yes, I wanted to also touch on the fact that at the very end here, the one thing that the Pope has unique to him is demand an apostolic tax, because every different type of realm has unique things here. The Pope can demand apostolic tax, so he can get extra money from certain countries, and military orders can petition the Pope for extra supplies, and the kingdoms can essentially get extra crown power by getting the Pope to say that they're legit. This here, I know this is starting to waffle on a bit long for one of my rants. This here is a comment that is listed. You can find this on the Tinto talk itself at the very end of the dev responses. This basically summarizes all my thoughts. I'll be honest, this is perfect. The perfect summary of my thoughts, where they're talking about all this stuff is boring, the abstraction's great, abstraction is good to have, but removing the political nuance and intrigue that comes with the position of a cardinal makes the most politically bloody, interesting institution within Catholicism into a boring one, where the Pope has no power, and there's just a positive opinion and some money sent between Catholic countries, having So, also the Western Schism. I forgot to talk about the Western Schism. Now, the Western Schism, where you have the Avignon papacy and the papacy of Rome, um, there is a single schism, just the Western Schism, and which, I mean, that's fine. That's a good way to condense it. But all the cardinals don't like it. It's not like the popes like can appoint new cardinals to try and gather more support or anything. It's just a pure case of whatever cardinals exist, everyone votes with whatever cardinals exist, and whichever side has the most cardinal votes just wins. And also, there is no, as the Pope, yeah, the Pope adjusting the number of seats in the college. This is something that I really like the idea of, that the Pope should be able to have, there should be a law, because the Pope should be the one determining the laws. It should not be just random Catholic countries that get the final say, as long as they have a cardinal, on what the laws of the church are. The Pope should, because he just would decide to do it sometimes, change the number of seats that the College of Cardinals would have to give himself more influence when he wanted to compete with a rival. So he would just say, we're going to have more seats now, and my cousins are now these cardinals. But there is none of that. You can never... There's a very famous example, the Borgia Pope, who they talk about in another diary. I'll get to that one as well. But the Borgia Pope, with Cesare Borgia as his nephew that he assigned as a cardinal, the Pope can't do that. The Pope can't just do anything like that, assigning loyalist cardinals in various people's realms. But this is getting long for one of my rant videos, and I need to bring it to a close. Thank you for listening to my tirade about the papacy. Hope it's not too much of a long-winded bother. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.